Well, let's bring in Nader Hashemi now in Washington, D.C. He's an associate professor of Middle East politics at Georgetown University. Really good to have you with us, Nader. This was always one of the biggest fears of this conflict, that it would spark a wider regional war. In fact, we are already seeing violence beyond Gaza, for example, between Israeli forces and Hezbollah in Lebanon. We're also seeing violence from Yemenis Houthis attacking ships through the Red Sea, but also now Israelis targeting Iranian targets in Syria. What is the likelihood of a regional war at this point?
Well, I think the likelihood of a regional war has significantly increased after April the 1st, when Israel hit a diplomatic compound in Damascus, violating the Vienna Convention, which sort of has established an international norm where diplomatic compounds are sovereign territory and off limits from these types of attacks. But critically, the April 1st attack killed several leading Iranian generals, three of them generals, several of them high-ranking military officers. And this has been widely viewed, even within the mainstream of the American foreign policy establishment debate, as a reckless attack that has increased the prospects of a regional war. Because now that Iran has suffered these losses, there's an expectation that it's going to respond in order to establish some sort of deterrence capacity to prevent Israel from hitting Iranian targets in the future. This is how deterrent capacity works. Now we're all waiting to see what the Iranian response will be. And so the region is hanging on the precipice of the prospect of a wider war for these reasons.
Well, that's right. Ever since that attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, we've been hearing repeated threats from various Iranian officials, including the Ayatollah, threatening some sort of a retaliation. The United States has been silent in terms of what's happened to the Iranians at this point. Do you think the US will be drawn in if this escalates any further between the Iranians and Israel?
Well, it depends on exactly what happens. I think if Iran tries to hit directly targets within Israel, then the United States, based on what Biden said today, they will try to come to Israel's defense. I don't think Iran is going to do that, because a direct attack on Israeli soil would be, I think, somewhat of a disproportionate response. Iranian soil wasn't directly targeted. Its embassy compound in Damascus was. So that would be disproportionate. But things can easily get out of control here, because it's pretty clear. Let's just remember what's happening. I think the reason why Israel attacked on April the 1st, and why Israel since October the 7th seems to be sort of trying to coax Iran into a broader regional war, is because Benjamin Netanyahu is stuck in a quagmire in Gaza. His internal domestic situation looks very volatile. He's under a lot of pressure internationally. And the only way Benjamin Netanyahu, I think, survives this politically is if he can demonstrate some sort of bigger victory by trying to draw Iran into a war, which would then mean the United States would get involved, hoping that when it's all said and done, either Iran will suffer some sort of major defeat, or Iran's major ally in the region, Hezbollah, will suffer some major defeat, which then Benjamin Netanyahu can take back to the Israeli electorate and say, look, maybe I failed on October the 7th to keep Israel safe, but I was able to, create a better security environment in the region because of, this clash with Iran. I think that's very much what's happening here. The question is, will the Iranian regime fall into this trap that Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to lay for them?
Well, that does lead me to my next question, because ostensibly the messaging from Netanyahu seems to be that it wants to eliminate Hamas in the wake of the killings of those Israelis by the group on October 7th. But as we can see, the conflict seems to be spreading. Israeli forces seem to be provoking people or Hezbollah in Lebanon, for example, and now the Iranians through their attack on their mission in Syria. Is Israel at this point capable of winning on those fronts, given their forces are already spread so thin in Gaza, and now they're expected to look at the fronts in Lebanon and potentially Iran?
Well, if you just look at the balance of power, Israel is one of the fourth or fifth largest military powers in the world. It's much stronger than all of its regional adversaries combined. It's primarily Iran and the allies and proxies that it supports. So on that front, Israel is military, it has much greater military potential than Iran does. But I don't think it's just simply a question of the balance of power between the two forces. It's really about whether Israel can, demonstrate, particularly Netanyahu, demonstrate some sort of major military victory against Hezbollah and against Iran that will allow Netanyahu to claim some sort of victory here in the aftermath of October the 7th. And it seems like the only way he can do that is by continuing to provoke Iran, hoping Iran will respond in some disproportionate way, then forcing the United States and the West to come to Israel's defense, thus allowing some sort of victory for Netanyahu when all is said and done and when the shooting stops. I think that's very much the calculation. I don't think Israel has a problem fighting on multiple fronts because it's much stronger than Hezbollah, and I think regionally it's much stronger than Iran. So that's not the issue. It's really the political dimension of this particular back and forth between Iran and its allies that really matters from the perspective of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Okay, Nader Hashemi, thanks as always for sharing your analysis with us.